I'm Deputy Superintendent here. In Mr. O'Brien's absence, we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to thank you all for coming back out again. We're going to try not to keep you too long this evening, so we're going to jump right on and jump right into this. And we're going to jump right into the technology. Something, turn it over to Matt Flood and let him get us started.
Good evening. My name is Matt Flood. I'm the Technology Officer here at Goose, and I'm going to kind of take you through the presentation that I gave to the Facility Planning Committee back in November. I've already made a few minor changes to it to the document. What I'd like to cover is kind of like our past, our present, and where our future plans are. And so in the past, you can see what we've done with technology in the 94 bond, in the 99 bond, in the 05 bond, and the 2013 bond, and how the cost increase has gone over the years. 94 bond, the biggest thing here to kind of look at is your 6-to-1 computer ratios is what we were shooting for in the 94 bond, and start implementing computers, file servers, that kind of stuff. I think internet kind of started getting big around 97, 98 time frame. 99 bond, did some more computer upgrades, started targeting 4-to-1 ratio for student computers, and started implementing teacher 1-to-1 ratio on desktops. 2005 bond was kind of a bigger bond for us as technology continued to grow. Some of the educational technology side projects, we had teacher presentation stations, mobile computer labs. We started doing mobile carts at the schools for the teachers to check out, and a curriculum management system. We also had a handheld computer pilots that we kind of did at Baytown Junior and Horace Mann 1-to-1 ratio project. And to support those, we did the first implementation of the wireless access across the district, upgraded the file servers, and started putting in the backbone infrastructure, switchgear, that kind of stuff that you see nowadays to help power the computer network. Replace teacher computers, replace student computers, lab computers, administrative computers, and expansion projects, and replace printers district-wide. 2013 bond, these are the projects that we did for the educational technology side. We implemented a video distribution system. Some of the libraries in the schools had video distribution systems, but some schools were built without video distribution systems, and they were just locally there at the campus. Your VCR, DVDs, so they could play movies, from the library out to the campuses with TVs and that kind of stuff. So in the 2013 bond, we wanted to do a district-wide video distribution system that we implemented. In the 2013 bond, we also tried to standardize the technology in the classrooms. So we went into every classroom and said, every teacher is going to get a Promethean board, which is an interactive whiteboard, a presentation station to present from, a document camera, replace the teacher's desktop, that kind of stuff, kind of standardized. Because before then, it was just kind of hodgepodge. Going from one classroom to the next, you may have a different set of technology in there. And the 2013 bond allowed us to kind of set the bar across so that no matter what classroom you went into, you have the same technology. It also allowed us to implement our 4th and 5th grade mobile devices. So every 4th grade classroom has a set of iPads. Every 5th grade classroom has a laptop card in it. And at the junior high, every ELA classroom has a set of iPad cards dedicated to that classroom. And social studies classrooms, 6th grade, have a laptop card outfitted to it. And then the high school 1-to-1 mobile devices that we started in the 2013 bond. We also replaced all the computer labs, and we did upgrades in the libraries, expanded the desktops, added self-checkout stations, added more cards for checkout, that kind of stuff, and then we had expansions for the new schools. On the technology infrastructure side, we went in and did wireless network upgrades, and we went in and upgraded all the network switching infrastructure. And we did some network cabling replacement, and you'll see in what we're proposing for the 2018 bond, in the 2013 package, we proposed almost $12 million in network cabling upgrades, and that was removed out of the 2013 bond. So you'll see that line item being pushed to the 2018 bond. The network cabling upgrade has allowed us to go in and upgrade all of our fiber backbone infrastructure district-wide. So all of our fiber optics are upgraded, and we've been able to replace some of the network cabling at like Lee and Sterling that have some of the oldest network cabling that were originally brought back online early 1994 timeframe. We've upgraded the network printers, replaced administrative staff, and we've also replaced the communication system. The phone system the district had before was individual PBX systems at each school that had phone lines to that school, and you actually had to call out, and it called out to the phone system, phone out to like Verizon, and then came back into other schools. So you're going out and back in. We've replaced to a district-wide system so we can call 5-digit extensions, and we're not having to call out and back in. So it's all, a lot of the calls are now internal. We centralize our phone lines and have reduced our cost in that area. And then surveillance systems, we have over 2,000 security cameras. We added security cameras to all the elementaries, all the junior highs, replaced all the analog cameras that were at the high schools with digital IP cameras. And so that's what we've done on the technology infrastructure side for the 2013. Get my breath. So why are we doing this? Part of our expectations go back to the TEKS set by the state, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and what we're required or try to shoot towards as far as technology in the classroom and collaboration. And you'll see this in the next. So K through second, what are we shooting for? Creative, innovative. You know, we're introductory versus proficient versus mastery. And you'll see these going up, right? Digital citizenship, technology operation and concepts. How are we starting to integrate that technology at the lower and lower grade levels and what we're trying to expect out of our students? You'll see a third through fifth. You see now we're out of introductory and we're getting into proficient, and we're still in elementary school. 6th through 8th, we then start getting into mastery of some of these skills. And then once you get into high school, you get into your individual class subject, right? What you're actually teaching in the class. And I think this PowerPoint will be available later if you guys want to go back and review it. So our future, what are we looking for in the 2018 bond proposal? A lot of it is just going to be replacement of what we've done in the 2013. There is some additions, and I'll talk about those. So here's our video distribution system that we put in. We just put that in, but we are projecting towards the end, right? In 5 years, we kind of shoot for a 5-year goal on replacing computers, desktops, anything that's closer to the kids' hands or teachers' hands has a shorter life cycle. Anything that's doesn't may have a longer, so like the security cameras, stuff like that, switch gear. We did switch gear in 2013. I'm not projecting to do the switch gear in 2018 because we're thinking that I can get a 7-year life cycle, 8-year life cycle out of that. So some of that stuff we did in 2013, we're not doing in 2018 because I think it may be able to last us longer. Same thing for like security cameras. I'm shooting for those to be a 7-8-year life cycle before they need to be replaced. If you have teacher computers that need to be swapped out, classroom presentation stations, so the laptop, document camera that we put in 2013 bond, replacing that at a 5-year replacement cycle. The projectors on the interactive whiteboards, we're shooting that. We think the boards will work and they'll last at least 10 years, but we're starting to see issues with the projectors themselves. So we're looking at replacing those projectors. And then your mobile classroom devices, I've already talked about the 4th and 5th grade, what we currently have. So this is going back in and replacing that equipment. Same thing for 6th through 8, ELA and social studies, going in and replacing what's existing there. The high school take-home mobile devices, swapping and replacing those devices as well. Computer lab replacements, just going in and swapping out the computers that we currently have and replacing them. Here are some of the additions. So we're looking at, we'd like to add mobile device cards to every classroom, K through 3rd. So right now they don't have that. They have to check it out from the library and fight for that technology. Or they use they have 2 desktop computers in their classroom. And so instead of replacing the desktop computers in the classroom, we're projecting, or we'd like to go in and do mobile cards for every classroom. And then add mobile cards for 6th through 8th grade math and science. We've already done ELA and social studies. We'd like to go back and do math and science as well. And then we have replacement of the technology in the libraries. So on the infrastructure side, the back-end stuff, the wireless network infrastructure, this is just to replace the wireless access points that are hanging in the ceilings, like that one up there. Shooting for a 5-year replacement cycle on that, just to keep up with the standard technology. The network infrastructure you see here is not the switchgear. This is actually the UPS, the battery backup systems. We bought those in the 2013 bond, but with batteries and stuff, that those need to be swapped out and replaced in a shorter life cycle. So that's why you see that number there. The network cabling at older facilities, this is to go into all the older facilities, anything built before 2005, and replace the network cabling in those facilities. You see network printer replacements, admin staff computer replacements, and this is staff. When we say admin staff, we're talking about admin staff at the campus as well, right? It's not just administration, admin staff. This is principals, APs, counselors, those that aren't in the classroom at the campus. So we designate the difference between the teacher computer and what's administrative at the campus. The communication system, this is kind of way on the back end. This is one thing that I think can last 7 years. So on the end of a 2018 bond, right, 2021, 2022, we would probably need to look at replacing the phone system. It would be 7 years old. The servers, the back-end storage, that kind of stuff would need to be cycled through. And then you see the security cameras. So I'm sure Rick has them around here somewhere, but you'll see our security cameras is mounted on the wall or hanging, that we're thinking those would have a 7-year life cycle and they need to be swapped out or replaced as well. And so total between educational technology projects, 32 million, and technology infrastructure projects at 20 million, we're projecting 52 million in technology upgrades for the 2018 bond. And I will leave it open to questions.
Hey Matt, on the projectors, are you going to do a full swap out of everything in case this fail?
And my plan was to target it as they fail, to go in, but not go in and just replace 50 projectors, because 50, just because there's 50 projectors at that school, we're not just going to go in and replace all 50, but as they start failing, just start swapping them out and tagging them so we know, okay, yep, we replace that one, yep, we replace that one. I don't plan on buying 1,600 projectors and them sitting,
So that number is based on what?
It's based on the number that we have. I think I had anywhere from 1,600 classrooms that have the projectors in there. So I am projecting 1,600 projectors. That's the total cost in case everyone failed. I don't know that I will spend all of that. What I'll typically go is I'll go to the CVAC and say, this is the project, this is what we need to do. I may come and say, okay, I need 200, and then buy 200 and have them in stock and use that and swap them out. And as I get low again, then go back and buy again.
So a lot of that stuff, I understand cameras and technology changes. I understand that. But like your battery backups and stuff, is that kind of the same way fixes fail, or we don't wait for them to fail?
The battery backups, those are going to start getting a 5-year life cycle warranty, and it's going to go into the time to go swap them out. So we'll fix them, yeah, because when we bought them in the 2013 bond, I bought a 5-year warranty with them, so they're good up until that point. It's going to be after that they've reached their life cycle.
And once they break over 5 years, we start.
Right. Okay. We need to swap that out.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed on the 2013, you said you spent on technology. Did Exxon contribute to some of that technology? Because I know they give money to the school district. How much of that did they give and how much was that used?
I can't answer that. So if they gave money to the schools and did donations, then that would have gone straight to the schools outside of what the technology bond would have done.
And also, isn't there some kind of rental place, just like when you get a cell phone, they do upgrades instead of having to purchase all this stuff?
So you can't, the district could look into a lease option on this stuff, but then you get into that annual operating cost of paying that lease for that.
Yeah, but then all this stuff that becomes old is just tossed away, and that's wasting money.
I agree. You might as well lease it. You're getting it back in 4 or 5 years anyway. Why buy it?
Because then you're bonding us again for this stuff.
Right, do you see us requiring a bond package just for technology in 2023, 2028, 2033?
Yeah, I mean,
these same replacements.
Yeah, to go to the history, right? The district's never funded technology completely out of operating budget. It's always come out of the 94 bond, the 99 bond, the 05 bond, 13 bond. That's the only way that the district has been able to go in and add and replace the teacher's technology, right? It's not on the school to replace that computer. It's relied upon a bond initiative to replace that. So unless that changes,
at some point, all those costs start adding up over 30 years. You have 6 cycles of technology replacements.
I think I can address a lot of those questions when I get to the finance piece.
yeah, because my interpretation on that is they're 5-year bonds. So you're buying it, the life cycle is 5 years.
And you can't issue a bond for longer than the life cycle of the item.
Right, but in this case, if we're adding these short life cycle items to a bond that's over the course of 30 years, if you're just paying all towards those short life items for the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years, then you're just increasing the interest that you're paying towards the long life items. So you end up with more interest either way. And that'll just start kind of snowballing on us over the next 30 years if we do this every 5 years.
I'm not the finance expert.
Can the financier also come up with a figure and show us how much it costs to be renting and paying monthly instead of buying all
I
this
think
stuff?
it'll be clearer when I cover that piece. It's not just that simple, but I think I can cover the topic and then maybe answer questions about it.
I like to see the figures, because to me that's being wasteful. Throwing money all the time for all these computers and look at our phones. 1 year, the next year is no good because it's need an upgrade.
And I've started looking for pawn shops because people are going to put them in, they need money, they're going to take them in and get money back from them and basically steal from the school. Basically steal from us if we're going to be putting in money to buy these 101 mobiles and mobile devices.
These kids don't need to take these home in the first place.
So,
3rd graders, really?
Well, I didn't say we were taking them home at 3rd grade, but we were going to make them available for the teacher in the classroom to be able to utilize that technology. I can tell you that we do have an agreement with Apple that when we buy those devices, they're engraved with our names on the back of it. They are registered so that only Goose Creek can use them, and if they are stolen, we can put them in lost mode, and the person that's stolen can't use them at all. It's already at that point.
Are they sold back to Apple?
So we are working on a way to sell back our old technology. So we do recycle our old technology that's outdated, and it goes to a recycling company. We have somebody that does like our regular desktops and stuff like that, and they do pay us back depending on what it is. A lot of it's not.
Skills, the cognitive skills, the memorization skills that is taught, they're going to go out of way, right?
Excuse me, he was talking.
That needs to be mentioned because those are teachers' part. That's what the teachers are about.
Excuse me, he was talking.
So the desktop computers, right, if they've lived their life and they have no longer resell, they'll crush it and then give us the price back in the precious metal. On like an iPad that may still have a retail value, they'll buy it back from us and then resell that somewhere else, whether it goes to like China or some other, but we'll get some of that money back.
Does it make more sense to turn them in every 2 years instead of 4 on a lease program so they have value in what you're turning back in and they'll give you more money?
I think you're going to pay the same either way, because when I was looking at Apple just recently on selling some stuff back, the pricing they gave me between one model and the next model, they're really, there's like $30 difference, right? But if you look at that, that's almost a year's worth of use. So for $30, and I get to use it for another year, does it make more sense to keep it and use it for another year for that $30, right? So the problem with the lease and how the district funds it is they fund it through bond projects, which are capital outlay, which means you have to buy it, you can't lease it. Leasing would be an operating budget, and that's more of a financial issue that Margie can help me concern.
Well, we don't have operating funds to pay those types of dollars out of the operating budget, they're just not available. And the other thing is, when you have a lease versus a purchase, you don't get to take advantage of, say he is able to stretch out that asset life for 6 or 7 or 8 years. When you're buying a lease, they're charging you, they anticipate it's a 5-year life, and they're going to amortize that cost over 5 years, and you're going to pay for it all in 5 years. And if you can get 8 years out of some equipment, we're ahead. So leases are they're in business to make money. They're charging interest too. And most of the time, with any scenario I've ever done, it's more expensive to lease than it is to purchase outright.
Even if you lease it, I know most leasing of people that, when they, the Xerox machines and stuff, for instance, they do their own repairs. So if we can look into something like that, would be worth the while, I think, because
You still pay price per copy. You know, all the math's been done, and it's cheaper to own your own equipment.
but
There are assets.
you're gonna have to pay out of pocket.
There are assets that it's more useful to lease. We do lease our Xerox copiers. But, you know, if you can take that argument and apply it to an automobile, you know, over the past, I don't know how many years, but it's about 50, in the low 50s to high 49 percentile, lease versus purchase when people go buy a car. Leasing has become more a popular method of purchasing a car. And a lot of the advantages are you don't have down payment and some of those issues. But people who are able to extend the lives of their assets by doing the proper maintenance and having high care and taking care of their assets don't usually prefer the lease option. They want to drive that car for 10 years and it's only paid off after 7. So that's the advantage that we pick up by owning their asset, one of the advantages.
But the thing is, again, it's technology. You know, so there's going to be a bond every so often for the same thing. Technology again. It's never ending. I mean, you know, as taxpayers, it's coming out of our pockets.
I understand.
And you know, that's upsetting because we need to figure out a less expensive way to figure
Well,
it out.
until the state starts funding us on the operating side to pay for those items, we're pretty much forced to go out and assess local taxes on the other side of the equation. And there's just not sufficient monies. And I think, you know, some of that will become clearer after I present everything. But there's just not sufficient monies to pay for the buses we have to buy, the technology we have to buy, some of the other capital assets like portable buildings and things that are not facility, but they are not facility, but they do have a life that spans more than 1 year. We can't pay for them 1 year cost out of our general fund when they have a life of 10 or 20 years because we're not funded from the state to do that. We are allocated so much money per student, and that's it. So the only way we have to acquire technology is these type of assets, along with all the other purchases that we have to buy, are really through bonds. And I'll show you some data that you'll see that's probably the least expensive cost of money you can have is to sell bonds.
Are you going to show us a breakdown of what you get from the state and what that's applied to and what's left over?
I didn't bring the actual funding templates and those formulas. They're massive. But I'll cover as best I can some of the questions.
Is there any way that you can go online and look at that?
Our summary of finance is available on TEA's website. They can be pulled up by anyone. Now, they're not always updated because TEA, they estimate those 2 years out, and then actual is not actually, they're not going to actually match every year. There's always variances, but there's a pretty good estimate of the summary of finance out there for everybody to look at. But they're very complicated. School funding is not simple. It's not a simple formula. It's very, very difficult to calculate and look at those numbers. So that's why I didn't bring the amount of time that we have. It's just not adequate time to cover all of that.
Will you bring it to the next meeting?
I'll probably have to just address specific questions you have. I mean, you know, like I said, I spend, my whole job is doing this, and I spend it, you know, every day, all day, and it's very complicated. But I'll explain as much of it as I can.
Thank you, but I mean, could you, just bring some kind of figure to at least show us that this amount was applied to this, this amount was applied to this, so we kind of get an idea of what our money is.
Yeah, I'll show some of that, and then we'll see what questions are left for the next time. I can bring back more data.
I think one thing that might concern some people is if we're budgeting a blanket replacement, but only going in and replacing certain items, then because of how open-ended the bond propositions are written and approved by voters, then that allows funds to be diverted to other projects that maybe voters weren't as supportive of.
I wouldn't mind addressing that comment.
No, because in the 2013 bond, we've gone back and allocated money to other projects that weren't approved by the voters at that because the board was just completely
not true.
That's not true. I'd like to say that we do have our oversight committee that I mentioned last time, our Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. That's a committee that's formed by just citizens, and we meet every month throughout the entirety of the bond. And they're the ones that approve from beginning to end a project, since the time we hire an architect through all of schematic design development, everything, all the way to the final design, the budgets, and any additional project changes that happen along the way. Those are all vetted through the CBAC committee before they endorse a project to move forward with the project, and then that's taken to the board for their final approval. And every single project that we work on with any bond funds is managed this way.
But there's clearly items that were on the 2018 bond proposal that we're paying for 2013 funds that were surplus because those monies were still available. So the project scopes can change after the bond proposal is approved by voters.
Yes,
it goes through a process, but it can change.
Yes, you're correct.
It's not an incorrect statement to say that those monies can be reallocated.
Yes, you're correct.
And those projects that you're mentioning that we're paying for with the 2013 bond, those projects went through the same process where we realized that we had these more urgent projects that needed to be handled quickly. We brought those projects to the CBAC committee for their endorsement. So the citizens approved those in addition to the original.
Right. So I'm just saying, if we overscope some projects, then those monies could end up being reallocated based on need by the bond committee and the board.
Yes, that's correct.
Can I say something? My name is Mike Beard. I own a technology company here in town, and I am not a school board member or do I work for the district. I do business with the district. I was on the CPAC committee, and I was probably the most outspoken person about spending money, as our chair would tell you. I did not vote for all the things. I want to address a couple of issues. There's a misnomer that you're paying for technology over a 30-year period. That is just not true. You're paying that as an outright cost. The technology lifespan normally in the past is 3 years. All major corporations have technology budget replacements that do not exceed 5 years. That's just the nature of the business. It wears out. If you do not finance some of this technology now, and you wait till the next bond in 5 years, then you're going to have technology that will have quit working 3 years prior before you can purchase the technology, and you're going to be without the technology. There was no bond projects on the 2013 bond that were not completed on that bond, period. Not a single one. You had additional money because of the outstanding management that the committees did and the project engineers did on redoing. In fact, many of you probably do not know is that bond was underfunded. It was over budget the very first day because of bad numbers by a lot of money. I don't remember the money, but it was 10 or 15, it was a lot of money. Due to the work of the committee and the projects and restructuring and working on contractors, they were able to finish all those projects under budget, ahead of schedule, with the extra money. The money that was left over was $5 million in the process, but all the other projects were completed. We, in fact, insisted that they were completed before any additional requests were done. We, in fact, turned down a request from the athletic department who wanted to put in this sod 3 years ago. They came to the bond committee and wanted to spend the money. How was the bond to do it? And the CBA committee says, no way, Jose. That was not part of the bonding. We're not doing it. And it was denied. So some of these things are just simply not true. It is more expensive to lease equipment than it is to purchase technology. That is a fact in the industry. Y'all can do estimates all day long. I do it for a living. It is more expensive. Matt has been very good. In fact, Matt, of all the departments I know, has gone out and found technology money and grants and other programs, lowered his own CDA budgets to get things done in his technology and get things proposed. You're either going to provide the technology to your students and they're going to have it, and you're right. Technology doesn't change in a year. My phone is 7 years old. I own a technology company, and I got a 7-year-old cell phone, and I'll use it till it dies. My employees don't, but I do, you know, in the process. So you're going to change this technology as it goes out. You're not going to get 7 years out of an iPad with a teenager using the iPad. If you do, I want you to come talk to me. I got a couple of them I'm going to send over to your house for training. In the process for technology. It's just not possible. So these are very reasonable. One of the things I want to address is part of this budget, I believe, Matt, if I'm correct, was money that was, some of this technology was never done, not in 2013, but it wasn't done in the bond prior to 2013. You have some of this wiring and cabling stuff that is well over 15 years old, and it's not going to last another 5 years. It's going to go down. They're using CAT technology from 15 years ago. It will fail if it's not replaced. It's pulled out of the bond. And it's going to have to be financed, and it ain't a $5,000 item. It's an expensive process to go through that. My specific question, Matt, is they're proposing some new schools and some new junior highs. Is there any technology cost associated with supplying those that's associated in your separate technology bond? Are those technology costs going to be directly tied in with the bond for those facilities? So the technology for any kind of expansion is tied back to the emergency program.
Yeah,
right?
They're tied to the project.
It's tied to the project. A percentage of that project money is tied set aside for technology.
All of the network infrastructure, including technology equipment, are in the numbers for every individual project.
I'm making that comment because I heard someone make a comment that if we don't build those schools, then we don't need to spend all the technology money. The technology money is not for the new facilities. It's for the current existing facilities. And you're working some old technology. Matt's not going to pass a bond and go out and buy $50 million worth of equipment next year. It'll be purchased at the end of the cycle, but it has to be funded. If it's not funded now, then you guys are going to wait 10 years and then it's going to be too late.
Where's the $5 million go that was left over?
We can provide a list of those projects to you. We'd be happy to. Yeah, we can bring that to you next time. Absolutely.
And I will also say, I'm not for all the things that are proposed in the bonds. I voted against all the bonds. Okay? And I'm on the CPA committee. I'm very open about that. I campaigned against the bond because I didn't like the way it was presented. I didn't like the function how it went in, and they knew that. Okay? There are pieces of the bond that I wanted passed except that I would have voted for. The one piece that I had no issue with was technology because I had gone through that with them. I knew what they were spending on. I knew how they were spending the money, and I knew what they were doing with that money. And I knew that we had things. And in fact, I, as a couple of people, were on the pre-bond committee prior to 2013, and we were told that some of this wiring and cabling was going to be paid out some rainy day funds or whatever. That never occurred. So that's that $14 million worth of wiring that got pulled out 10 years ago. And you just don't operate businesses in this day technology with that kind of infrastructure. It doesn't happen. So you finance it or you pay the penalty every time.
One place where you asked where the money went, one perfect project to go into is the Green Center. Okay, the Green Center was originally, what, $500,000, Brenda? Less than $1 million
Yes,
renovations.
a little less than $1 million.
A little less than $1 million was scheduled for renovations to the Green Center. That's the old skating rink building that's across the street from Sterling High School on Baker Road. Okay, for a long time, Matt's technology was there. It was damaged with the Harvey floods. Okay, and mostly in part because of the money that Matt always manages to save us out of his budgets. We had this money left over, so they looked at that project and came up with a great idea. Okay, the project folks came up with a great idea of completely renovating that site and moving the police department there, the tax office there,
and the truancy department.
And the truancy department. Okay, and so that's where it went into. Instead of just a bare bones, here's what we need to do to keep this building functional, they did a complete renovation of it. and have turned it into a multi-use facility that's going to house 3 key areas of the district.
That's currently in design right now, it's not.
Yeah, and that was only done after the other bond projects were funded and completed.
That was only within the last few months that we approved that project because, okay, now we can see everything else. Their budget's already set, and so this money's truly left over, and we approved that money to go to that purpose. I don't know anything about
We've
that.
got some insurance money, but I don't think FEMA, you got any.
I don't think the district got FEMA.
Yeah, and the insurance only, I think, allows you to put it back like it was.
Right.
You can't improve it.
Right.
Why would you put something back that had 2 feet of water in it like it was? That makes no, that's what the computer technology center was.
Right.
That makes no sense.
If you don't have any other questions about technology, a little later on we're gonna break out and do a little exercise here, not physically, but we're gonna move on, I think, to Margie, and she's gonna give her financial presentation, and then we'll have some time for more questions here.
We're trying to adjust it.
Well, I'm Margie Grimes. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CFO for Goose Creek.
Margie, you're going to need the microphone.
I'll need the microphone. Okay, can you hear me better? My name is Margie Grimes. I'm the CFO for Goose Creek. I've been here with the district for my 6th year. I've been in management of government finance for about 25 years. So I've been doing this a while. I have a lot of topics I'd like to cover. Because there's so many areas to finance, and there's so many different levels of understanding about finance, I'm going to ask that if you have questions, just feel free to ask them as we go. Maybe it can be more of a discussion for those who don't understand an area, and it can be not just presenting financial facts, maybe it'll be more interesting as well. So if you want to stop me on a topic, let's stop and discuss it. Because there are so many, you might forget, like I have notes because I didn't want to forget to cover something because there are so many things, and you might forget too if we wait. So feel free to stop me whenever. Are we ready to go?
Yeah. Your numbers may be cut off before I figure it out. Go ahead.
The numbers are cut off.
Well, your presentation is a little
It's
wider.
not showing up up there. It's changing, but it's not showing up up there.
Could just show it on the wall.
Yeah, that's a good.
You could.
That would work. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Keep that going.
Man ran out of money when he was buying screens.
So I can be talking even though we aren't looking at the first slide, because I wanted to point out something different about school districts, how we operate. We're very different than other local taxing units, such as cities or counties. And there are 2 things that really, let's see if we can go forward now. Okay, here we go. And it's a little off. See if you can raise that. There are 2 things that really set us apart. One of them is our primary source of funding is your local property taxes. The second major difference is that we're regulated by the Texas Education Agency and the State Comptroller's Office. Cities and counties, they generate revenue with other sources. They have other sources of revenue generation, such as fees for services, permits. They have franchise taxes, sales taxes. For a city, property tax only represents about 1/3 of their total general budget, whereas for a school district, it's practically 100%. So that's very different. The other thing that's regulated is cities and counties have a lot more autonomy in setting their local tax rates, and they're afforded a lot more leniency when they have increases or need to increase, when they have increased costs. They're not subject to recapture. They're not sharing their wealth with other cities and counties like schools is subject to, you've heard it called Robin Hood, where the state takes in the money, basically. They tell you, you're going to get so much per student. That's basically what we operate off of. So it's very different than other taxing units. Are we still trying to get that?
Yeah. Sorry, y'all.
We do have some guiding principles, and they're on the slide. I was just going to have you look at those. We do try to provide the services that are needed and be mindful of the burden to the taxpayer. And we do try to be good stewards of every dollar. Those are some of the guiding principles.
It's coming up. Let's go.
Okay. That we operate under. Better.
Hey Matt, you have 2 projectors.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
I got that.
Yep.
Like I said,
Turn stuff off.
if you need to stop and ask a question, please stop me. This is a pie chart that shows that basically on the right that we generate about 2/3 of our revenue from local property taxation. The other about 1/3, if you add up the 2 greens, that represents the state revenue. We get very little federal money. You can see on the left, it's sort of a breakdown in terms of dollars. Our total revenue budget, this is the 18-19 school year, so this is for next year, is about $223.7 million. And this just gives you an idea where the money comes from and how we're funded. On the other side, the expenditure summary by category, this is our total expenditure budget. You can see that salaries account for about 84% of the dollars that we're given by the state. We have our local collections in the state, and then we're allocated so much of that. And 84% of those dollars go to salaries. After you take out our insurance and utilities, there's about 12% left. And if you'll see the numbers to the left, you'll see that represents about $26 million left. That covers transportation, fuel, all the repairs and maintenance, all the grounds, all the custodial costs, all the school supplies, everything else comes out of $26 million, and we operate 30 schools and all the facilities that we have. So you can see that really most of the money that we have available is going to paying salaries for our teachers and our staff.
Margie?
Yes.
None of that budget includes interest on bonds, correct?
No, this is just the general fund budget. See at the bottom, I have it says general fund expenditures. The previous chart was general fund revenues. I'm just talking about our general operating fund, and I'll explain in a minute the difference between those two. I just want to kind of give you a feel of where the money comes from and where it's going on the big picture. So, Baytown's been growing, and I'm going to say again, I'm going to kind of jump around because there's so many topics, and I wanted to cover several different aspects of school finance. But what if our property values go up? Because Baytown's been growing, my property values have been going up. And you can see to the left where I've sort of divided that apple the best I could between 1/3 of the state funding, which is the top half, and the bottom right being what's collected here locally in Baytown. On the right, it shows that if our property values go up 8%, all we do is lose 8% on the state side. They just give us 8% less. We still have one apple. We don't get another apple. We just have the same amount of money. This property value does not determine how we're funded. Okay? Our funding is based on enrollment and the special populations that we have. If we're serving more special ed students or if we're serving more career technology, we get some weighted for those fundings for those programs, but it's purely based on that, not really the property value.
Why do you say that again? If the property values go up, the state funding goes down.
Yes, sir. So we don't receive there is a small increment that we get from increased values, but primarily this is what we have. We have the same amount to operate off of.
And Margie, just one point. Most everybody sitting in this room knows that Chevron and ExxonMobil just built 2 huge ethylene plants in town.
Yes.
Both over $1 billion. That's our property tax money. That went up property tax. That property value goes into our number. Now there's other things go along with that, with agreements that the district has. But if we didn't have those agreements, that piece that the states give us would be even smaller.
Right. And it's going down, and I'll show you that in a minute. Not just for us, but for everyone. It's dramatic. You'll be surprised. So, but I just want to lay a foundation so as we continue to talk, you'll have a foundation. Okay, so the local property taxes is the basis of our revenue generation, how we operate. But that money is required by law to be assessed into two different parts, and money is kept in literally two separate buckets. By law, you cannot move the money between the buckets, okay? There are exceptions, and we'll get to those. But generally speaking, if we assess tax dollars, they're to be used for these purposes. For the maintenance, they're to fund the day-to-day maintenance of the district, and those are known as the general operating fund dollars. And to the right is the interest and sinking fund tax rate. It can only be used to pay debt. We have $1.17 we're assessing for maintenance and operations taxes, and 26 cents for the debt portion of the rate. The total rate is $1.43. Okay? I know there's some more data you probably want to get to, and I'm going to get there. Where does the money go? This is just another picture of what I just showed you. To the left, you can see that pie chart. The red is the 26 cents. That's the interest and sinking fund part. Together, the M&O and INS represent about $257 million. And you can see that the M&O, and I put it over there to the right so you can see them there too, covers maintenance and operations. You can only pay salaries, utilities, supplies, contracted services, maintenance, transportation, etc. And the interest and sinking fund can only pay principal bond payments, interest bond payments, and fees. Fees like paying agent fees. They're the ones that make sure the bonds get paid, the money goes out to all the bondholders, etc. And we have to pay them a banking fee. Essentially, that's what that is. So this is just a breakdown of that tax assessment and how it's split out. You can kind of just see the proportions there. This graphic, it's a stacked bar chart. It's to illustrate the tax rate history over the past 9 years. You can see, if you consider, it's hard to see at the bottom, they're kind of chopped off, but the very last bar on the right, that represents 18-19. So including next year, you can see that our total tax rate has remained the same now for 5 years. The makeup of that tax rate has changed a bit. Back in 16-17, when we passed the penny swap, more of those dollars were assessed on the maintenance and operating side and less on the debt service side. See if there's anything else I want to point out about that. This allowed Goose Creek to assess some additional state funding to address some fiscal priorities without increasing the tax rate to the taxpayer. So when we did that, we were able to gain and access some additional dollars, because on that side of the formula, there's additional weight given to those tax assessment that part of the pennies they yield more dollars than on the debt service side. In addition, we knew that we had, and this, I don't want to get too complicated, I want to make sure everybody follows this, but back when we did the penny swap, the district knew that we had these Chapter 313 agreements we had approved. We knew that the values were going to go up. But they only go up on the interest and sinking side. They don't go up on the maintenance side. That's where they get their value limitation. So they get, it's not an exemption, but for lack of clarity and understanding, think of it like an exemption, like you get your homestead exemption. Part of your value doesn't get taxed. When we agree to this, the comptroller has to approve all of these agreements, and they're an economic development incentive for those companies to build their plant here, to bring those jobs here, and provide things for our community that we didn't have before. So when you have these agreements, you know that rate's going to go up and that value is going to go up on that side, we decided to go ahead and swap the whole 13 cents and maximize the funding and that the state was providing on that side of the formula, because we knew that the values were going to go up on the INS side, and we would be able to then continue to pay for our debt as we had.
I have two questions. The first one is, you were talking about maximizing state funding. Didn't the penny swap going up to the 11 copper pennies actually put us into recapture where we're...
The first year when we did the pennies, it put us slightly into recapture. We're a gap district, so we fall between, this gets really complicated, between those two equalized wealth levels. There's the first one and then there's the third one. We fall in between there, so we're considered a gap district, which means, well, they don't get the laws updated, but the funding formulas are so old and they're so antiquated, and we just keep, making them work. But we fall in between that, so our wealth per student is higher than the third tier, but it's lower than the first one. So we're typically not subject to recapture. This did throw us into recapture. The first year we paid $400,000. But of those same pennies that you were assessed, we gained $16.5 million. We had to give them back $400,000. That's how that works. So we're still giving a little bit back. It went up a little bit this year, and you'll see in a minute, it's a balancing act. We evaluate it every year. And at the year when our recapture becomes where it's not worth assessing those pennies, we won't. But this year we calculated, we thought we need to keep it at the $1.17. I think we might pay as much as $1 million back this year. But those are estimates, and the final numbers aren't here until the final enrollment's taken, and it's not just enrollment either. It's if the kids are in attendance, because you're not getting funded. If your attendance is 95%, it's a big difference if it's 94%. So when all those numbers are finished at the end of the year, only then will we know exactly where we stand. But I calculate every 6 weeks, and I update it every time we get our reports on student enrollment every 6 weeks, and I update that. And I'm looking at it constantly. And it is a constant juggling act, yes.
So there was the $16 million increase in the local taxing, but the first year it was a little over $6 million had to go back to INS to cover the debt service, right?
I'm going to show you all those transfers in a minute. Yes, but those funds are not derived from that. Those the general fund balance, you'll see in a minute. I'm going to get to that.
Right.
Is higher than what our target is, and as long as this is a question that's been a point of confusion out there. As long as the general fund has existing, available, and unrestricted fund balance, the board can choose to use those monies to pay into the debt service fund, to transfer money into that other bucket. They can't assess taxes to do that. But the district knew that the values were going to be going up, and we only had a few years before they would be whole again on their side. So we knew we had the fund balance to cover that, and we contacted. We have a bond council. They help us with every bond sale we do, and we contacted the tax attorneys and said, before we do this, we need to make sure that we're following the letter of the law. We want to make sure that we're not outside that and we do this right. And he assured us, as long as we have, and I have if anybody gets really interested, I have a letter here from back then, Attorney General Greg Abbott, what was his name, Greg Abbott? I think it's now Ken Paxton, but they've changed so much. But back then, there's a ruling, and it was sent out to all of the tax assessors and about how that worked. You cannot assess dollars on the maintenance and operations side to pay your debt. And I'm going to show you a little bit more detail of that in just a minute. But this is just to give you the history of where we've been tax-wise.
Yeah, it just seems like when you underfund the INS side intentionally and move that money to the M&O side, it's trying to tell voters that your tax rate's going to stay the same, that it's more like you're assessing a tax for the purpose of paying INS.
You'll see in a minute why it's not true.
Even though you're calling it surplus to get around the ruling by Greg Abbott.
It's a technicality, but if we didn't have the fund balance and it wasn't existing and available, and if the board didn't know that it was only going to be a few years, and those assessed values would be right up there where we needed to be, and that they were only going to be making that whole for a few years, it'd be different if we were doing it ongoingly. This was a gap we filled for a few years for monies we had saved in the general fund. And that's the difference.
Part of the 2018 bond proposal, the analysis done by the financial advisor had $4.5 million being transferred.
We had $7.5 million being transferred. That was an assumption we gave him. And that is the board's decision, because back then, we didn't.
On an ongoing basis.
No. Those assumptions were on an ongoing basis, yes, they were. But we have other revenues that we use. We have, because of the Chapter 313 agreements, we have protection payments and supplemental payments. We also have revenues that come into the district through a foreign trade zone agreement we have with ExxonMobil. And those monies are monies that come to the district that the board gets to decide, and I'm going to show you some more of that in a minute, where to put those funds and how they want to use those funds. And this is why we've been able to be, and we stop relying on those to balance our budget. They're undeterminable, the amounts vary, it's based on the economy. We don't want to base our budget on some factor that changes and is volatile when you're in an industry like Baytown and you have such a high volume of industry. So we budget we don't budget those monies. We don't have to budget those monies. We shouldn't budget those monies because we don't know what they're going to be. But when they come in, the board has that discretion to decide what they want to do with those funds. And you'll see a lot of it have been invested in assets and purchases, so we didn't have to sell bonds. And we're going to get to that. But
one last question. On the Chapter 313 agreements that the comptroller approves, isn't one of the usual justifications that the plans make for those Chapter 313 agreements that the additional value going to the INS side will be able to drive the tax rate down for the residents of the
yes, and we drove it down 13 cents. But we also did the swap. Yes, and we have 2 more Chapter 313s coming on, which will further drive it down. And if we don't sell more bonds, then it actually will go down. But when we did the penny swap, we explained the dynamics of that and why we needed to do the penny swap. We needed the penny swap because we needed to generate the extra money. And I'll show you in a minute because we've been operating at a deficit budget for 4 or 5 years. And we were trying to rectify that. And I'm going to also let you know that there are a lot of school districts, not Goose Creek, many school districts right now that are they're trying to balance their budget and they're in a deficit. And they're in millions of dollars of deficit because they didn't do the penny swap. And now a lot of them are scrambling, trying to do the penny swap. I get districts calling me pretty regular with help, like when we went through it all, trying to get data so they can put out there so they can do the same thing. The state, and I'm going to show you in a minute how the funding has not been available for the growth that we've experienced. The state hasn't kept up with the growth. And we have had to be proactive and creative. And I think that our district has done an excellent job of being ahead of this curve so we can have a balanced budget, so we can give our teachers a 2% raise. And because a lot of districts aren't doing that either, and they've done it out of their fund balance, and their fund balance is depleted down where maybe they only have a 1-month reserve. You'll see in a minute we've got a 4-month reserve. Our bond ratings are AAA, the highest you can get. We have tried to be proactive. I don't know how else to explain that other than knowing the values were coming and they're going to keep growing. We were able to do that swap and have no increase to the voters, take care of our deficit budget, provide for our debt, provide for the growth we're seeing in our districts, and that's what we did.
And Mark, and not only is the state not only not giving you more money, they've also given you more unfunded mandates.
Oh, a lot more.
Yeah,
yes, a lot more. A lot more unfunded mandates. Yes, they have. This is a simple illustration, and I know that we put out illustrations before, and we've had negative feedback. Okay, my home's not $100,000 value. We use a $100,000 value home because it's easy to do the math. And the average home value in the city of Baytown is less than $100,000. Now, I know a lot of people don't have a home that's less than $100,000, but a lot of them are. So this is just to show you that at the $1.43 tax rate, you would pay on a $100,000 home $1,430 annually to the school. If your home is valued at $200,000, you're going to double that number. If it's a $150,000 home, take that number and multiply it times 1.5. So it was easier to do the math. This is just a quick illustration. You've seen that before. We spent a lot of time there. I do want to point out, this is a very important slide, and I want to point out, I hate that the legend down there is, you can't see it, but I'll tell you what it means. On the left, this is a 9-year history. Okay, the green line represents the district's revenue. Okay, and the red line represents our expenditure. So we're just going to focus on that. You can see where revenue used to be higher than expenses. Well, then expenses went up. We were operating in a deficit. You can see that until the voters approved the TRE, and that's when you can see then the revenue went up. And now we're being able to balance our budget. We even have a little excess. The bottom of the chart, the yellow or gold line, that represents our target fund balance. The district has guidelines set to have a target savings account, if you will, of money that's in the bank, the rainy day fund. Some people know the state budget as the rainy day fund. That yellow line is the target fund balance. It is set at 25% or 3 months of operating expenses. The blue line represents our actual fund balance. So this is the target, which is based on 25% of operating expenses, and the blue is the actual fund balance that the district has. You can see the big uptick there. That's when the district changed its fiscal year. Another thing that was very, very proactive to change the fiscal year, we had a permanent increase to fund balance that we then, you can see the fund balance started going down, that we used to pay for a lot of assets that weren't included in the 2013 bond, things that the board wanted to do. So that's kind of what that tells you over there, the story of where we are. Some other things that you should be aware of, our bond rating is listed there. We have a AAA bond rating by both Standard & Poor's and Moody's. It's the highest bond rating that you can get. It is. We do obtain that through the permanent school fund guarantee. We have a AA rating on our own, which is very, very good, especially for our size of district. Our first rating, it's like a report card. It's called the Integrity Rating, Integrity Rating System of Texas. It's like our financial report card, like you would get an academic report card. Well, this is a report card on our finances. Our goal is to pass that, but we've had a superior rating for, like 16 or 17 years now. And you can see it shows there our fund balance. The goal is 25%, we're at 35%. The balanced budget, we've got, including next year, and since we've had the penny swap, we've been able to balance our budget for 3 years in a row, unlike many districts who are still operating at a deficit. We have an unmodified opinion, which means a clean opinion on our annual audit. We also have obtained several financial awards and recognition. 2 of those, the first 2 listed there, they're certificates of achievement, excellence in reporting. We produced a CAPR, which is a comprehensive annual financial report. It's about 100 pages long. It's a lot of data, and it's a lot of work. But we get an award, they go through that, a committee reviews it to see if it's worthy of receiving this award, and we've obtained both from the GFOA and the ASBO, which is the International Association there. We've obtained those awards, and recently, last year, we obtained the Purchasing Award of Merit, which is the first time the district has achieved that award. And they look to make sure you have policies, they make sure that you're following policies, especially when you're spending like federal funds and some of the grants, and there's a lot of, when you have federal money, there's a lot of red tape, that's really true, and we have to follow all those guidelines, and they review our policies to make sure they're sound, and then we received an award finally.
One question real quick. Is that showing that we went from a little over 150 million in expenses up to, we're almost at 220 million?
Yes.
50% increase over 7 years?
We went from 100, well, we went from 100, that's about 100, are you looking at the revenue or expenses?
Expenses.
Yeah, it's probably 160 or so, and we're now at 220.
Yes.
And this represents 9 years now.
What's the change in student population over that time period?
I didn't bring the enrollment with me over that time period, so I don't have that data. I didn't bring enrollment. I know that over the past 10 years we've grown about 6%. We were up higher than that, but it's around 6% over the past 10 years.
Per year?
Total.
So we've gone up 6% in enrollment and 40% in expenses?
I didn't do the math, but 170 minus 220, I don't know. And again, this revenue that you're looking at includes a lot of the supplemental payments, the extra revenue that we get. It's outside the funding formula that you'll see what we've included in our expenditures, that they're included in those. So yes and no, it's not that pure.
So our expenses per student's gone up significantly.
And they have gone up. They have gone up.
Why don't
yes.
Sarge, touch on the unfunded mandate, because yeah, they've gone up, but it's not just because we're spending out of control.
Yeah, there's so many factors. I mean, I can bring more data on that, but there have been a lot of mandates, and we've not received the funding for them. We've tried to provide as much of that we can, but you know, every year we have requirements that we have to meet. They came out last year with we had to put all these cameras in every special ed classroom or something, and there was no money for that. They keep giving us things that we have to comply with, but costs have gone up. I mean, your household costs have probably gone up in the last 10 years. If you look at it, I don't know the percentage, but
people living in my house, I'm not getting funded for the people that are in my house.
Well, I'm just, if we're saying that as local revenue goes up, state revenue goes down, so the state's not giving us more money, but our revenues have gone up in accordance with the expenditures going up, and some of that's the state giving new mandates, but it seems like the state is helping on that to some degree. Otherwise, our revenue would be where it was 7 years ago.
well, we're taxing at $1.17. You can see when it went up dramatically once we passed that. I mean, so that's a lot of the reason that you see that.
Look to the left of the TRE, it's still up.
It's still on. It's still climbing. It is. Like I say, I can bring some more specifics on those percentages of enrollment growth and some of that breakdown. I didn't bring that, so I can't answer specifically the percentages and so forth. I didn't go back to 1994 because I only went back 20 years like Matt did, but I just basically wanted to show that over the past 20 years, the district has approved about $550 million in bonds, and you can see where they were sold. They're not always sold all at once. They're staggered out according to the needs and the projects. Okay. That's just to give you an idea of the bonds and the sizes of the bonds that we've sold. I want to spend a little bit of time on this, and I have some prepared data because I know that there was questions about this even earlier. There's been questions as to why the bonds are used to finance non-facility items, generally assets with a shorter useful life, like buses, technology. Major expenditures for capital replacement cycles, they become a drain on what's already a stretched maintenance and operating budget. Districts with large bus fleets may need to replace 20 or more buses a year to keep the fleet rolling. That, aggregated with the technology for the teachers, classrooms, and the students, and other capital needs, creates the need for capital replacement programs that include the use of bond funds. Bonds for capital replacement are authorized by the district voters and are generally sold to match the lives of the assets. So the length of the bond is directly related to the lifespan of the asset that is paid for with those bonds. For example, the district will sell 3 to 5 year bonds for the purchase of technology. The district sells bonds that mature at different times, so bond expenditures for items with a shorter lifespan are paid off before the purchase becomes obsolete. Also, tying the bonds to the life of the asset ensures that future taxpayers will not be paying for something that's already been recycled. It should also be noted that it's a financial advantage to the district to pay for some capital expenditures such as technology, buses, land, and portable buildings, etc. with bond money rather than from the general fund because they can be spread over the useful life, and every dollar that's taxed and assessed on the interest and sinking side is not subject to recapture. It is always here in Baytown for reinvestment. So I put this together, this chart, to show how the shorter assets, and you can see the useful lives there, line up with the maturity of the bonds. And I'm going to further go into that by explaining in some of the next slides how we even further manage debt to make sure that we have kept our interest rate and our time period for payback on those bonds short. So, go ahead.
On the useful life, in the 2018 bond proposal, there was roughly $40 million in what I would call short useful life items.
I had about 50, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
benefits you. Your
40 or 50, yeah.
How much bond principal do we repay the first 5
That's based on a lot of different factors, and I'm going to show you some more data that will help explain that.
Based on the financial advisor's bond repayment schedule, how much do we repay in the first 5 years, which would be the useful life of the
Those repayment schedules were based on factors then. The interest rate changes daily, so those calculations are based on the then interest rate that we sell those bonds for. The cost of money is based on what we go out in the market and what the interest rate is at that time. So when he does an estimate on that particular date and time, it's only really good for a very short period of time. And then the interest rates have already gone up since then. So I don't have the answer to that. And I didn't run those schedules because I don't really have a size anymore of what the bonds are going to be. But I'm going to give you some more information that's going to help answer that.
I did run the numbers, and based on...
But you don't know what the interest rate is going to be when we price those bonds. So you're making assumptions that are estimates just like ours.
Correct. No, but it was 8 years before we repaid the bond principal for $40 million.
And I'm going to show you where that's not correct. I'll show you why. Let me get there. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Okay, because I see what you're saying, but I'm going to get there. These are some management tools that we use to manage, and this is going to answer a lot of those questions. These management tools help us to manage our debt. We use different debt structures. We use fixed rate and variable rate bonds. The variable rate bonds are bonds that they have a term, but they have a maturity that is reset like every couple of years. So we're paying 1 to 2% on those monies versus 4 or 5%. And you cannot go get a lease. You cannot go get a loan anywhere. We currently have, and you'll see in a minute, about $60 million in variable rate debt that we have outstanding. And this is one of the ways that helps us to finance these short-term assets. It's with short-term bonds that mature and roll every 2 years. And we refinance them, but we're only paying 1 or 2% for those dollars instead of what you would pay otherwise. Bond refundings. We have refunded, you'll see in a minute, refundings that save the district millions of dollars on interest costs. It's the same as if you were going to go refinance your home. If the market conditions become right, such that the interest rate drops, and you can save money by going to refinance your home, that's what a bond refunding is. We go refinance those bonds and get a lower interest rate and save interest dollars on those refinancings. We also have our debt service fund balance. We can draw on that if we have excess fund balance. We also have our general fund balance, but it has to be...
Where does the savings on those bond refinancing go? Lower the payment.
They just lower the payments. Yes, sir. They lower the payments. And they shorten the life of the bonds. If we refinance them, it's for maybe we refinance less. So it might be that the maturity goes down entirely. The total debt goes down entirely. We have general fund can be used as a tool, but it has to be existing and unrestricted to be used towards any debt management. And I've listed a couple reasons why we end up with excess fund balance, because we have some things that are outside the funding formula that our district is very fortunate to have. And I mentioned those earlier, the foreign trade zone agreement we have with Exxon and the Chapter 313 supplemental revenue. So we're negotiating right now with another company on another Chapter 3. It's going to be over $1 billion project. And Exxon is coming to us with a third project that is going to be over $1 billion. So we're going to have extra funds there. So that's going to help us with these assets and with these small purchases and these short-term structures. This is an example of variable rate bonds. There's 2 different bonds we sold. We sold them at the same time. We sold them back in 2014. After the voters approved the 2013 bonds, we decided to use this debt structure and sell part of our bonds. And we have 2 different term bonds. In fact, one of them, I think it's the one on the right, the 24 term bond, is coming up for remarketing in August. I had a call today with a due diligence call with the underwriters because those bonds are going to be repriced on August the 1st. But if you can see, we just did a scenario, we used a 5% coupon rate. That's a little high, maybe interest rates have been 4. If you go in long-term, 30 or 40 years, they range more between 4 and 5% on average. But we use a 5% rate, and that's a little high. But just comparing those, we've saved $11.5 million since 2014 in the past 4 years just by issuing variable rate debt versus the fixed rate traditional structured debt that you've seen. So that's just one mechanism that we use to offset the cost of financing short-term bonds and to just keep our overall interest costs down. This is just a recap. This is the past, I think, 16 years. That's all we had available without doing a lot more research. But these are refundings we've done in about the past 16 years. We've saved $41.5 million in interest costs. That's just a tool we have that whenever Trump recently approved the tax plan, one of the elements that was in there was that no longer would we be allowed to do advanced refundings. We would have to wait till the call date to call those bonds and refund them. So that provision was going away. So we jumped through hoops. I mean, I called my financial advisor and said, look, can we refund some bonds? Are we happy to refund now? We did. We jumped through hoops and we got it done. I think I was there on December 31st talking to him, trying to get that deal closed. But we saved $6 million in interest costs by doing that. So we've taken advantage whenever we can to try to refund bonds if we can save some money by lowering that interest rate. It lowers that interest cost. This isn't it. You've seen this before probably. This is just how much debt the district currently has. And this is going to show you another picture of where the short-term bonds, more of that stuff is front-loaded. You can see that at the end where there's not as much debt. That gives us, that's where our bonding capacity is to issue new debt. We have a total of $445 million outstanding in principal, and our interest outstanding is $195 million, for a total of about $640 million in total annual debt service requirements. These are like you pay your house note. The blue part represents the principal that goes to principal. The red part you're paying interest. And you can see how that wanes off there starting about 2030. So as new bonds came on, the long-term debt, there would be more stacked up on the front for the short-end stuff, or issued in the variable rate bonds, where we can get those things paid down and pay down some of that debt quicker. But there's several financing tools that we use to try to manage our interest costs, to try to keep it down, and try to keep the bonds that are maturing short-term paid off short-term. The debt service fund, I mentioned this as a tool. We haven't used the debt service fund much, and the reason is because right now we have unrestricted fund balance of about $13 million. That's about 35% of our average annual debt service payments. Okay, if you ever have an emergency where party or you have an economical turndown, we live in a highly industrialized area. But say for some reason we got slow pay and we didn't collect as much of our taxes as we wanted to, as quickly as we needed them. We have this fund balance to make that difference up. If there are any timing differences, we haven't needed it. The district has a very good collection rate. We have a great tax office. We serve 10 different taxing units now. She's a very, very valuable asset. And we've been able to maintain a good fund balance. These other monies that are in there, the $5.5 million is a balloon payment that's coming up, and that money it's in the bank. We haven't taken it out of fund balance. It's on the balance sheet, but it's coming up, and so we know that money's been. We can't use it. The $9.2 million, when we changed the fiscal year to June 30th, when we assess the taxes and we collect the taxes, we have to include that August 15th bond payment, because we're not going to assess the taxes again till October when we send out the bills. So we have to assess that August 15th. We used to have an August 31 fiscal year end, and almost all government's debt are due on February 15th, August 15th. So we assess for that, and that sits in the fund balance until August 15th, and then it comes out. So it's really not available. It's only there for a timing difference, kind of. So we account for that, and we make sure we annotate that it's unrestricted, that it's restricted for future bond payments. And this is what I wanted to show you about the monies, the extra monies that we've had, those extra expenses that show up in the general fund. Here some of them are. We have, I'm sorry you can't see the total, $36 million of capital assets that the district has paid for out of its general fund over the past 5 years. This represents 5 years, and I know it's exactly 5 years,
because I created this fund when I got here. And so all of these assets have been accounted for in a separate fund and tracked separately for the past 5 years. We do have about 10 million of those in the bond to be reimbursed to the general fund. We would like that to come back to the general fund because those were monies that were excess over and above our operating expenses that we wanted to recoup. And the board made that decision. You can see the largest of those purchases when we purchased Impact Early College High School, or really constructed that. It's about a $15 million asset. We bought buses, technology, a lot of capital improvements, whether it be parking lots, awnings. You can see there for yourself a chiller. And then we have some assets that we have projected on the right, the very far column, are those assets that are still not completed but have been appropriated by the board. They come out of that general fund as an expense, but we haven't completed those yet. And those are listed on the right. So some of the projects that we didn't include, that we were able to put over here this year, because of the supplemental revenues, are these new ones, the light fleet, the transportation, communications, and technology. But this just gives you an idea of that, not everything has been in the bond. We try to pay, this is like a pay-as-you-go concept. We try to pay as we can, as much as we can, out of the funds that we have excess. And so this is another tool I talked about, and it's using unrestricted general fund balance to help the debt service fund make payments. We have made $9.5 million over the last 2 years worth of transfers, and next year we're budgeting to move over $1.5 million for a total of $11 million. Now, if you'll notice on the right, that beginning in 2020, the interest and sinking fund and tax collections will be sufficient to carry on the existing annual debt service requirements without any kind of transfers or any contribution from the general fund's fund balance. We knew we had these transfers. We knew we had the fund balance to do it. And when we did the penny swap, the board had this in their intent all along. But this is where we stand with it. Hopefully after we've adopted 18-19's budget, with year 2020, we don't anticipate that need. And then this is some of the final thoughts I wanted to point out. Basically, the state funding. It's a balancing act. We talked about how revenue goes up, state share goes down, local share goes up. The state, this is just saying that despite the ever-growing population, the demand to increase educational attainment levels and the state funding hasn't really, it's been stagnant. It's been stagnant for 8 years. But the demands keep going up, and they've largely been the beneficiary of these local rising property taxes through different mechanisms of the Foundation School Program, and that's the funding formula I keep talking about. So virtually all improvements to public education funding have come from increasing local tax revenue. And even then, if you adjust it with inflation, the total revenue per student in average daily attendance has increased only 1.2% over the last 8 years. So that's not much.
Are those numbers specific to Goose Creek, or are they?
No, these are general. These are general numbers. These are numbers that were published. I got this from several different sources. I'd have to pull out where I got that one. But most of this is the Legislative Budget Board. I think that's where this came from. Information that they put out.
So on the previous slide about the revenues, it seemed like ours had gone up a lot more than 1.2% over that time.
Well, we have a lot of other factors in ours that are not. This is just the Foundation School Program. This is the state share, what they're contributing. We've raised our taxes, and we've had a lot of growth, and we have had some increase in local share, but not in the state portion. And I'll show you another graph that's going to explain that in a minute. So we've been slashing school funding for a decade, and property taxes are rising as a result. For the past 10 years, Texas elected officials have been gradually cutting funding in public schools. It says the state legislature has now shifted over $2 billion every year that would have gone to public education to other programs.
Texas is spending more on education than it did 10 years ago, but it isn't keeping up with the rapid growing population. The number of students in Texas public schools has risen almost 17% since 2007, but the state funding has only risen 8%. And this is a perfect picture that I wanted to show. This graphic shows the state share of funding, how since from the 1980s, now you can see, remember when we had the big economic downturn in 07, 08 right there, and then they came back up and they tried to make some of it whole. They never did ever bring us back to the levels we were at, but then it's continued on a decline since then. So the point is that the incremental revenues we've gotten have come from the taxpayers. The state is providing less and less and less, and we're having to do more and more and more without any assistance. So the burden is falling on us. And, you know, we don't have the dollars to fund the cost of all of the things that they require of us. You know how your insurance has gone up. I can tell you our general fund budget is, you know, those costs, property insurance, and every time we have a Harvey, those just go up even more. So, you know, we live on the Gulf Coast. We've been subject to some increases that maybe other people don't have. But we've been able to hold our own. We've been able to produce a healthy fund balance. We have a good bond rating. We're positioned to move forward for the growth we anticipate. I hope some of this was not too deep. There's so much to it. And I hope I've answered some of the questions, and I'll be happy to try to address any other ones.
Okay.
A lot of data.
I think we're going to move on to our next activity. We don't have a lot of time. We've got about 30 minutes left. But what we want to do is, you see, we've put some posters up. If we can just kind of split up and you get, we're going to take turns rotating to each different group. We've got technology, specialties, major projects, and we've got upgrades and renovations back here. And what we want to do is we'll have some key district people at each one of these stations to be able to answer questions directly about each one of the projects that are listed. You've received a handout. This is the update to what we passed out last week. Last week we showed you in blue, highlighted what the changes were. This handout today has eliminated some of those projects that were combined and omitted. So it's a condensed version. And it's got a little bit more description on each project. You'll also notice that we have prioritized each one of these projects. These were internal priorities that we've assigned to the projects, and at a later meeting time, we'll have opportunity to discuss those priorities with this committee here. I think that's it. If y'all have any questions, again, we'll be at those different stations to answer. Last important question. You'll see some green and some red dots around. We want to gauge how you feel about each particular project. You'll see a yes column and a no column.
Green and blue.
Green and blue. Sorry, green and blue. Green for yes and blue for no. If you can please help us out by grabbing a sticker and placing it on what you feel about. If you're undecided, please let us know. And if you have any additional questions or any more information that we need to provide to you. And as a quick reminder, all of the presentations and documents that we provide to you will be posted online. The ones from last week are up online, and anything from today will be up online on Monday. So please feel free to share that information. And there's also some index cards. If you think of anything else while you're at home and want to jot that down and bring that back to us, and again, please feel free to email us too.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Throughout this whole bond, my daughter goes to GCM.
Yes, sir.
In the last 3 or 4 days of school, there was threats that people were going to come and shoot up the school. Out of all of this, there's $53 million sitting on the table for technology. There's not one thing in here about security other than updating cameras in 3 or 4 years.
I have a very good answer to that. Is we've done such a good job with the 2013 bond in providing all of our security.
I can walk into any of these schools at any time. Without, yes ma'am, I've done it. I walked into TCM at 7 o'clock in the evening.
I can tell you that we are.
I've also gone to, I didn't even interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
But I've also gone to the schools to pick my daughter up, and the school don't know where she's at. I also get phone calls from an automated system all the time that tells me she's not in the class she's supposed to be in, and I can call her and I'll tell her, where are you at? I'm in my class. So there's a lot of things that I see day to day that are more important to me than the field house, than $20 million worth of LED lights. I mean, the security, I mean, y'all think we've done a good job with that?
We've spent at least $13 million in security out of the 2013 bond.
How much did you spend on technology that year? Should security not be updated also? I'm more worried about my kids going to school and getting shot than I am my kindergartner having a iPad.
One thing I can tell you is that we can provide the equipment at the school for the school to use. We can't afford, we in the construction area anyhow, can't force the local campus to utilize that equipment. We know that the gate should be locked and the only way you can get in is through the front door. That's the way it's supposed to work. Dr. Price will tell you it doesn't work that way because I'm in a lot of schools with my job. And I can see not all the principals are locking the place down.
I agree.
And Dr. Price does drills throughout the year, and he gives reports back to them what they're not doing right. What they do with it, he can't be there every day to every school.
Well, that's the problem.
That's
a lot of them have more. I'm sorry.
I believe that security needs to be.
Probably not because of security.
The first thing everybody says, well, we need cops there. Well, we don't have the money for it. Well, this is what we're here for, to allocate money for things. We can't get metal detectors because they cost a lot of money.
There are cops at the schools.
Greg Abbott said he would provide some.
Before we all start talking at once, you know, that is one of the things we're here for. If security is one of the things that you want to put down, you have a voice. Write it down, put it on here. We want to see more safety and security. We want to see more police officers. We want to see more, if you are leaning towards metal detectors, if you want to see more security cameras, whatever your thoughts are, put that down. We want to hear it. That's what we're here for.
It doesn't matter if we have a $30 million field house if a guy walks in and kills half your football team one day.
So
because all the jocks
are absolutely right. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
I think it needs to go further than this room. Just like y'all want us to put yes and no on all these things right now, why isn't this bond done that way? And when we go to vote, we'll vote on the whole thing.
Put it down, sir. That's what we're here for.
Didn't Greg Abbott say he would help out with the funding for security?
Yes, yes, he did.
Well, that would be a good thing to be putting up to him for this because we need it.
Yes, ma'am. I meet all over the state with all the leaders of the state of security, and we talk about this. Right now, our district is one of the leading districts, one of the model districts in the state. Other districts are coming to our district to see how and what we're doing in our district to keep our students safe.
Because these gates that y'all spend money on,
because
they're always open.
Because of the total things that we do within our district. And not just the gate, not just the cameras, not just the vegetables, but because of all the things we do that are intertwined and connected.
I understand that some of the security, I think you ought to have more cops in school, 100%. You can't bond finance a cop in a school. Right. State law won't let you do it. That has to come out of a different fund. If you think you ought to have it, you ought to be talking to your school board members every single day. I want more cops in school, I want more cops in school, and I want more cops in school.
That worked well with Tom's point.
Yeah, 100%, the RB. I think
you're right. They escorted the lady out at our last meeting that they went ahead and did that. Yeah. They didn't listen to us either. Yeah. So
there's a process for that, but you can't finance a police officer in a bond package. You can finance gates and new security cameras and things like that.
The only thing I hear is what we cannot do. Even with the school board. The school board was the same way. They sent letters home, they voted on it, they did all, the people said, we don't want times changed. And what did they do? They did it anyway. Half the teachers didn't want it, and they did it anyway. So where are we at now?
You got a school board election coming up, you can vote them in and vote them out.
That's what we'll have to do. Well, now everybody's asking for money, and I think it was a pretty clear statement when the bond fell. They didn't listen to nobody the last time, why should we give them money? Everybody wants us to write a check and say, well, we're going to buy computers, we're going to do this, but nobody ever actually sees where this money goes. It's just another 4 years and we need another $100 million or $200 million or whatever. And then when you go to a school board meeting and you voice your opinion and they do what they want anyway, why should we thank you? Why should we give you a bond? I'm all for this school getting bigger and nicer. I'm for property taxes going up because it makes our values go up. But there has to be a medium. I mean, people, obviously the bond fell for a reason. When we went to the school board, that didn't work. And like you're saying, vote them out. I mean, it was pretty obvious that everybody was pissed about that because they had a police escort lady out that brought it up that wasn't in our district. What did that get anybody?
Also, the bond fell because people are tired of being taxed all this money, and then all these kids that are getting too much stuff. I mean, just like the stall, y'all want to build a new arena. We don't need a new arena. The arena that we had to go to for this last graduation, that was a sorry arena. No AC. The AC wasn't even going on. It's hot. And we had to drive a whole hour to go see the kids graduate. But then we have a Star Wars Stadium here. They could have used that. I graduated. We were on Star Wars Stadium. There was no problem with that. There was more seating there. And now y'all want to spend tax money to build a new arena. I think that's dumb.
Okay, guys, in the interest of time, because one issue that we hear from people about joining committees is they don't know how much time they're going to have to give, and so people are reluctant to do that. So we've really tried to structure these to be 2 hours that we keep a commitment to so that you'll come back. So in the interest of time, since we do have 20 minutes left, can we just go ahead and do this final exercise? You can, and we do want you to, write those comments on the cards, we'll take a look at them, and we'll address them in the next meeting.
Please put your comments down. We do want your comments. Please put your comments down. Especially about security and safety, because that comes to me. So please put those down.
Start here. So basically, just
yeah, you look at which items that you are in approval.
I know, right? That's what I was thinking. Let me check mark.
Yes, sir. But you might want to go grab your stickers. Yes.
Oh, you got the stickers? Who's got the stickers?
Oh, here you go. Here they come. They're coming around now. You get some stickers. Ladies, here they are. They got them right here.
And then it was saying that one color is important.
Yeah.
And
Green is yes. Yeah. Let me have a green and a blue. I can put one up here for you.
She said something about like what's more important, or like we're gonna mark. Is that the yes? Yes.
Yes, blue is no. We didn't have any red.
Just blue. I am no blue.
We gotta make sure nobody's gonna stand us in the back too, but whatever we decide.
There we go. One more blue?
I say
Can I get 2 blue sheets and 1 green?
No, just give that likewise. Hey Thomas, this is my Jim again. This is my friend Sarah.
Hi. Nice to meet
Any questions? We will try to answer any questions that you may have.
I have more of a comment.
and I'm not sure what this video is. No. I've seen that. I've seen that on social media where they like Goose in the Goose page where they
Put greens and all this too. Yes, so you colorblind.
yeah.
Stuff like ace off and
Yes.
you and your husband play golf.
So last time,
See what she wants to eat.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We did talk about
It's like changing your head.
Green is yes, blue is no.
And then your campus has a phone where they can access the phone like in the morning
I'm doing one for Mike Beard. It's called
the cafeteria, and you can then play back with it.
both things look the same.
We're not there yet. Put that green screen.
Yes, you could do a green screen in the background.
We got that, but I don't know if anybody's used it.
Okay.
And then
So you don't need it.
It's used so much.
People think it's hard to
Don't you cheat.
Nobody gave me the sticker, so
I'm not stuffing the box.
Like internet thing.
that is